Hello dear students. Today we will be talking about 2D NMR. I have already done 1D NMR with you. Now we are proceeding towards 2D NMR. I am Dr. Sonika Bhatia from the Department of Chemistry, Isabella Thoburn College. Before I start on with 2D NMR, let us go through the limitations of 1D NMR. So correlating two different chemical shifts by 1D NMR is not possible. We will get chemical shifts by 1D NMR, but correlating two different chemical shifts by 1D NMR becomes difficult. This I will explain to you as we proceed further. Second, structure elucidation of larger molecule is difficult using 1D NMR. You must have seen that we had second order spectra and then we utilized many different ways to simplify them. Thus, if the molecule is large, like in the case of proteins, it becomes very difficult to elucidate structures of big molecules like proteins and drugs. And it is not possible to observe multiple quantum coherence directly in 1D NMR. Now, this is beyond the scope of your syllabus, but I will be touching upon it when I talk about heteronuclear 2D NMR. Look at these two spectra here. The molecule here is a ketone, and if you look at ketone, on one side I have an isopropyl group attached and on the other side I have a methyl group attached. So this is the proton NMR of this molecule. This is a doublet, then a singlet and a septet. I have just made a schematic sketching here. So the actual, this is not an actual NMR but a schematic drawing. So if you see, what can we see? We are saying this. See, this is a doublet. If this is a doublet, obviously it belongs to these two hydrogens here. And because of the hydrogen sitting here, it has been split into a doublet. And then the singlet probably at 2 is because of these hydrogens at the methyl, and the septet is because of the hydrogen, the CH hydrogen sitting here. If I look at the C13 NMR, the C13 NMR is showing me 4 peaks. Of course, the C double bond O is also giving me a peak beyond 200. And the other 3 peaks are for the 3 kinds of carbons which I have. That means this carbon is one type, this is the second type, and this one is the third type. But looking at 1D spectra, I cannot find out which hydrogens out of these, which hydrogens are correlating to which carbons. That means which hydrogens here are attached to which carbons, which we can see on C13. So now let us look at how the 2D spectra helps us to make CH correlations. So in the proton NMR we had seen 3 peaks, one for A protons, the other for B protons, and for the other for C protons, appearing at 2.5 ppm, 2 ppm and 1 ppm respectively. Similarly in C13 NMR also there were 3 peaks present, X, Y and Z. Now my question is, which particular proton is attached to which particular carbon? So there are 3 peaks here and 3 peaks here. That means in total I can have 9 combinations, or 9 combinations are possible. That means A protons can be attached to X carbon atom, or A can be attached to Y carbon atom, or A can be attached to Z carbon atom. Similarly, B can be attached to X, or B can be attached to Y, and B can be attached to Z, or C can be attached to X, C can be attached to Y, and C can be attached to Z. So I have a total of 9 combinations possible. So a 2D NMR is able to tell me which particular combination exists. When I talk about a 2D NMR, I am basically talking about 2-dimensional. If you remember, in a 1D NMR, we had 2 axes. On one axis, we had the integrals, or the intensity of the peak, and on the other axis, we had frequency, where in proton NMR, we used to talk about 1 ppm, 2 ppm, 3 ppm and so on. So one axis was a frequency axis, the other axis was an intensity axis. But when we talk about 2D NMR, both the axes are frequency axis. if you look at this particular 2D NMR, here on the y-axis I can see C13 and C13 frequency axis, and on the x-axis I can see a proton NMR x-axis. Thus, there are two frequency axes, so it is referred as a 2D NMR. 1D NMR has one frequency axis, while 2D NMR has two frequency axes. In this particular NMR which is represented here, since the two frequency axes belong to two different atoms, thus this is an example of a heteronuclear 2D NMR. And this particular schematic drawing will be showing us which carbon is attached to which hydrogen. So now let us look at our proton NMR, and the peak C is at 1 ppm. So let me draw a vertical line from 1 ppm. I reach this particular dot here, and then I draw a horizontal line touching the C13 NMR axis. So when I touch the C13 frequency axis, I reach at 18. Thus, this dot shows that C protons are attached to Z carbon atom. Let us look at the second dot. The second dot is at 2 ppm. So I start from 2 ppm, draw a vertical line, reach the dot, and from the dot travel horizontally. And when I travel horizontally, I reach 25 ppm, and thus this shows that B protons are attached to Y carbon atom. Similarly, here I can see that A protons are attached to the X carbon atom. A protons are attached to the X carbon atom. Thus, this kind of correlation is available in a 2D NMR, and it clearly specifies which carbon is attached to which hydrogen. This is another type of 2D NMR. Here if you see, the difference is that on both the frequency axes, proton NMR has been plotted. So here a proton NMR has been plotted, and here as well a proton NMR has been plotted. So in such a case, what will happen? We will see which proton is linked to which proton, or which proton is coupled to which proton. So if you look at this particular case, this is one proton NMR here, and the values I have written here, that is A is equal to 2.5 ppm, B is 2 ppm, and C is equal to 1 ppm. Now let us draw let's see where this dot is following. If you see, this dot is coming from 2.5. So from 2.5, if I draw a direct vertical line, then where do I reach? I reach, let's see, where do I reach when I draw? I reach C. So C is at 1 ppm. So this dot here is showing that the C proton is coupled to A proton, and in this particular spectra there is no other coupling shown. So I can say that in this molecule only the C protons are coupled to the A protons, and vice versa. The protons at the B protons are not coupled to each other. You may say that this particular information is easily available if we look at proton NMR, and in proton NMR, the 1D proton NMR, there is something known as J coupling, and we have studied that if J coupling is same, that means the two protons are splitting each other. But in simpler molecules, this can be applied. Once the molecules become molecule becomes big, there are too many couplings happening, and thus then a 2D NMR is very useful. So that's what I have shown here, that if you have simpler molecules like ethanol, it is very clear and 1D NMR is sufficient. But if you have molecules like proteins, you can see how complex this particular NMR is. And thus in this NMR, it becomes very difficult to proceed further and to unjumble this NMR. And thus 2D NMR is very useful in that case. Now let me take you back to how 1D NMR was being recorded. We've already done this. I'll just quickly go through it. The first step is preparation of the sample. And how do we prepare the sample? We take a sample and keep it in a 5 millimeter tube, and then we make a solution. That means our compound is made soluble in a deuterated solvent, and then it is homogenized and kept between the magnet. So that is referred as preparation of the sample. Once the sample has been prepared, then what is done? Then a pulse is applied to it. And what is a pulse? It is basically a radio frequency short pulse of microseconds. So a pulse is applied to it. And when the pulse is applied, what happens? The protons are excited. When I talk about excitement, then that is basically they from the alpha spin state they go to the beta spin state. And once the RF pulse is removed, the nuclei then starts relaxing and a free induction decay or an FID is generated. The FID is in time domain. We can see as the time is increasing, the FID is going towards 0 or decreasing, and this FID is then subjected to a Fourier transform, and from the time domain it is converted into a frequency domain and we get signals. This is how a 1D NMR is recorded. Now let us see how a 2D NMR is different from a 1D NMR. One thing which you already know is that there are two pulses. Because we have two frequency domains, that means we have two pulses. So in a 2D NMR, two RF pulses are applied. Here also the first R sample is prepared and pulse is applied. Let's consider nucleus 1. It gets excited, and when the RF pulse is removed, oscillations are like in 1D NMR. Once the RF pulse is removed, what will happen? Oscillations will be recorded in the XY plane, because if you remember, when a pulse is applied, then net magnetization from the Z axis turns into the XY plane. So oscillations are recorded in the XY plane. Second, the nucleus starts relaxing back to the Z axis. If you remember, this is known as longitudinal relaxation, and also dephasing occurs in the XY plane, and this was known as the transverse relaxation. So three things are observed. One, oscillations are recorded in the XY plane. Second, the nucleus starts relaxing back to the Z axis. And third, dephasing occurs in the XY plane, right? So after this is the difference in 2D NMR. After this relaxation has occurred, there is transfer of polarization and transfer of polarization to the coupled protons. And what happens? There is transfer of polarization occurs along the Z axis to nucleus number 2. Now, once the polarization has been transferred from nucleus 1 to nucleus 2, it is again the transference of polarization, the magnetization is along the Z axis. So, another radio frequency pulse is applied. With this radio frequency pulse, again the net magnetization comes in the XY plane. This pulse is also known as a mixing pulse, because the magnetization has been transferred from one nucleus to another nucleus. Now again an FID is obtained, and it is converted from, now at this stage we convert this FID from time domain into frequency domain. So once this FID is done, now you can see there are two frequency axes, frequency 1 and frequency 2, and a peak is obtained. So this is how a 2D NMR is recorded, and this diagrammatically I have represented here spin A, then the first FID. And how is the first FID? The first FID is equal to cos omega A T1, where omega is the angular momentum of the FID, and then the second FID, which is equal to cos omega B T2, where this B is the second nucleus and A represents the first nucleus. So if I talk about total FID, I will say total FID is equal to cos omega A T1 multiplied by cos omega B T2. So a typical 2D spectrum is composed of several strands. So many scans are taken together, and many scans when taken together, it will improve the signal to noise ratio. This is also what we had done last year. So the same step is again and again done to remove the signal to noise ratio. This 2D NMR spectroscopy can be broadly classified as homonuclear and heteronuclear. In homonuclear, the first kind is COSY, which is correlation spectroscopy. Here on both the axes you have protons. The other homonuclear experiments are TOCSY, total correlation spectroscopy, inadequate, NOSY and ROSY. These are beyond your syllabus, but I will tell you a little bit about them in later lectures. Heteronuclear experiments, when we talk about heteronuclear, as the word states, the atoms on the two frequency axes have to be different. So heteronuclear, the simplest kind is head core. That means on one axis we have proton NMR, on the other axis we have C13 NMR, and then we have these three heteronuclear single quantum correlation. HMQC is heteronuclear multiple quantum correlation. HMBC is heteronuclear multiple bond correlation. Let us now talk about COSY in detail, that is correlation spectroscopy, when we have proton NMR on both the two axes, and it correlates homonuclear chemical shifts directly coupled through J coupling. That means the two protons which are coupled to each other through J coupling. Diagonal peaks correspond to a normal 1D NMR, we will see this later, and coupled protons are identified by cross peaks in the spectrum. Here what I have mentioned, these various kinds of 2D NMRs basically are differentiated from one another by the kind of pulse sequence which is used. In COSY pulse sequence, both the pulse sequences are 90x pulse sequence. That means a 90-degree pulse is given along the x-axis, or it is basically given in the xy plane. That means it can be given along the x-axis. If it is given along the x-axis, the net magnetization will be in the y direction, and if it is given along the y-axis, the net magnetization will be along the x-axis. All this we have already done in detail when we did 1D NMR. So you can see here net magnetization initially in the along the z-axis, then a 90-degree pulse sequence is given along the xy plane, and you can see that there is now the net magnetization is along the x-axis, and then the protons relax, and when they relax, net magnetization again comes in the z plane, and then a second sequence of pulse is applied. When that is applied, again it is tilted towards the xy plane. But here what has happened, here magnetization transfer has happened from spin A to spin B, like we had done in the last slide. Now let us see how a 2D data acquisition occurs. Here what has happened is, first step, as we have all done, first step is preparation. So the sample is first prepared, and then what happens, an RF pulse is applied. So let's consider nucleus 1 or nucleus A. Now in this case, if you see what has happened, this nucleus A, after the RF pulse has been applied, then FID is generated, referred as evolution, and once the FID is generated, then there is transfer of polarization, and when the polarization is transferred, the polarization has to be transferred to B, but supposing total polarization is not transferred, obviously 100% polarization has not been transferred, some polarization is left with A. So I can say complete polarization to B has not happened, some magnetization or polarization is left with A. And efficiency of this magnetization transfer depends on the strength of the interaction between A and B. If coupling strength is very strong or coupling is very strong, the transfer efficiency is also more. And if coupling is weak, the transfer efficiency is less. So now when the second pulse, so what has happened? Some magnetization is left with A and some magnetization has been transferred to B. Now when the second pulse is applied, which is known as the mixing pulse, it will apply to both A and B because there is some magnetization left with A and there is some magnetization which is in B. So now when the second pulse is applied, it will apply to both A and B, and now if Fourier transform is done, we will see two plots or we will see two peaks. So the first peak will be obtained instead of one. Now I am seeing two peaks because cos omega AT1 gets multiplied with cos omega AT2. In the first case, if you see, I have cos omega AT1 and it gets multiplied with cos omega AT2 to give the first spot, and the second spot is appearing because cos omega AT1 gets multiplied with cos omega BT2. Let us see here. Or omega A1, and on this axis omega A1, this gives us the first spot, and the second spot, if you see, it is coming by omega A multiplied by omega B. So that will give us the second spot. This is when I spoke about that I spoke about the nucleus A. It can also happen that nucleus B is excited because it will also be simultaneously excited. So if the nucleus B is excited, after evolution, I will get an FID equal to cos omega BT1, and then after evolution, what will happen? Magnetization transfer will happen, which we refer as mixing. And when mixing happens, some of the magnetization will be transferred to the coupled nucleus A, but some of the magnetization will remain with B. Thus, I will have two FIDs. One FID is cos omega BT2 and the other FID is cos omega AT1. And thus when a Fourier transform is applied, because of this two signals will be detected. The first signal will be detected because of cos omega BT1 multiplied by cos omega BT2, and the second signal will be detected by cos omega BT1 multiplied by cos omega AT2. So in total we will have 4 FIDs and thus 4 spots will appear in the 2D NMR. Let's look at the other next slide. Now if you look at this next slide, we can see 4 spots here. This particular spot in red and the blue spot are on the diagonal line in the spectra and are referred as diagonal peaks. You can see a PMR is plotted here on the x-axis and PMR has also been plotted on the y-axis. So these dots which are on the diagonal line are referred as diagonal peaks, and they are not very important because they are giving us the same information as in 1D NMR. You can see how are they formed. They have been formed by omega T here. They have been formed by omega B and omega B on this line. So basically these have not been formed by a magnetization transfer to any other nucleus, but the magnetization which has been left with A. Similarly, this spot has been formed on both the axes. If you see, you can see omega B. Thus, this has been formed by the magnetization which was left with omega B. So, this will give us only that information which a 1D NMR gives. So, are not important. If I start a vertical line from this peak on the proton NMR and horizontally, if I proceed, I will reach the same peak. So these two are the diagonal peaks and are not important. what are important are the off-diagonal resonances, also referred as the cross peaks, the yellow peaks which are designated by a cross. These are the peaks which have developed because of cross polarization or magnetization transfer from A to B. Now you can see omega A on this axis is related to omega B on the other axis, or here if you see, this is omega A here, this is omega B here, and it is going to omega A here. So these are the peaks which are obtained by the magnetization transfer. If from this, and if you see, this is a mirror image, this half is exactly a mirror image of the other half. The diagonal line is dividing the spectra into two halves. Oh, we only consider one half. You can because whatever information you are getting from this half, the same information is there in the other half. So let us only consider this half. If I draw a horizontal line from this cross peak, I reach A. If I draw a vertical line from this cross peak, I reach B. So what is it showing? It is showing that the proton A is coupled to proton B. That is the information which I am getting from this diagrammatic view. So two protons are said to be coupled if a horizontal line drawn from a cross peak intercepts a contour on the diagonal and a vertical line from the same cross peak intercepts another contour on the diagonal. Now, what are these diagonals? Because I am using the term contour, but what are these contours? Because you are looking at dots. These are all schematic drawings which I am using to explain 2D. When you look at the actual 2D NMRs, these will look as contours here, small contours here. All the peaks will appear as small contours. You will see them later on. Another schematic representation of 2D NMR of propyl chloride. So 1-chloropropane if you see. So this is the schematic drawing. Whatever dots you can see on the diagonal are because of the 1D NMR where no propolar, we do not have this, they are giving the same information as 1D NMR. Here no polarization transfer has happened. And what the dots which you see off diagonal are important. Let us look at the blue dot. What does the blue dot tell us? The blue dot is telling us that the peak at 3, the peak of proton 3 is related to the peak of proton 2, the peak of proton 2. That means proton 2 and 3 are coupled. Similarly, the red dot is showing me that proton 2 is coupled with proton 1. So that means proton 2 on one side is coupled to proton 1 and on the other side is coupled to proton 3. So it is sandwiched between proton 3 and proton 1, and that is the information which I get from this proton spectrum. That proton 2 is the central hydrogens which are there. They are coupled with the hydrogens on the hydrogens on carbon 1, and they are also coupled with the hydrogens on carbon 3. Here in this spectra, this is an incomplete 2D spectra. Here only I have made the protons on the diagonal line. I hope you've been able to understand what I had to say. The information which has been taken in these slides have been, the sources which have been used are the NPTEL lectures of Professor Athriyar and Professor Surya Prakash, both from ISC, and some amount of material has also been taken from the book of spectroscopy by Pavia.